Welcome into NFL Daily. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and on today's show, we're going to be discussing the recent report from ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter that Jayden Daniels' camp is not happy with the Washington Commanders bringing in a bunch of different prospects in for a mass visit earlier this week, and also saying that Daniels has significant interest in playing for other teams not named the Washington Commanders. So this is a major development less than a week away from the start of the 2024 NFL Draft. So we're going to be breaking it down here in just a second. But before we get into that, for more content from me, at Jack_Sperry on X and at SpareDog.football on IG. I'm one of our lead NFL draft analysts here at Chat Sports. So if you want more NFL draft content leading up to the big day in Detroit next week, I'm going to be releasing my final mock draft next week. If you want access to that kind of stuff, just go to at Jack_Sperry on X or at SpareDog.football on Instagram. So here is what Adam Schefter from ESPN had to say earlier today about the Jayden Daniels situation. It didn't seem to go over too well, talking about his meeting with the Washington Commanders with his agent, who sounded off on social media that he didn't seem particularly pleased with the process. Daniels thought it would be a visit for just him, but Washington essentially opened up the process. The Commanders are going through it after this week when, again, I think it's a situation where from the outset, Jayden Daniels has had interest in being other places, meaning not the Washington Commanders. He just has. Now the interest is, what do the Commanders do about that? Now listen, if I am the Washington Commanders and I'm their new GM Adam Peters, or if I'm their new head coach Dan Quinn, and I'm trying to select a new franchise quarterback to lead that football team, hopefully for the next 10 to 15 plus years, I want somebody that's all in. I want somebody that wants to be there and somebody that wants to build something special with the Washington Commanders, and right now it just doesn't seem like Jayden Daniels fits that description, where he would rather go play for like a New England Patriots or a Las Vegas Raiders or somewhere not named the Commanders. We have heard rumblings that Daniels does not want to go to Washington throughout this entire draft process, and if I'm Washington and I'm looking at this situation, I probably don't want to take Daniels at number 2 if I have any inclination that he does not want to be in Washington to start off his NFL career. So that leaves the big question here. Should Daniels still be the pick? And if not, who should be the pick at number 2 overall? Well, Washington brought in 4 quarterbacks this week on that mass team visit before the draft. They brought in Jayden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr. So for today's pinned comment, let me know which quarterback the Washington Commanders should take at number 2 overall. Type JD for Jayden Daniels, type DM for Drake May, JJ for JJ McCarthy, or MP for Michael Penix Jr. Like I said, this is the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Now, if I am the Washington Commanders, this is my kind of order of operations here. My plan number 1, my plan A, is to try to figure out if Jayden Daniels actually wants to be a Washington Commander, because if he does, I think he is the right pick for that football team at number 2 overall. He gives a really nice blend of high upside with NFL readiness, which is perfect for them because they need a starting quarterback right away and for the foreseeable future. So if you think Jayden Daniels wants to come play for your football team, go ahead and make that pick. But if you have an inclination, if you have even a little bit of a whiff that Jayden Daniels doesn't want to be a part of your football team, I would probably trade down to with like the New York Giants or the Minnesota Vikings, and I would try to get either J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan or Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. I think both of those guys are good fits within Cliff Kingsbury, their new offensive coordinator's system. And you might be saying, Jack, what about just take Drake May at number 2? Well, I actually have major concerns about Drake May and the fit between him and new offensive coordinator in Washington, Cliff Kingsbury, because I think Drake May is the type of guy that needs development, particularly with his footwork and how that affects his accuracy, because we have to acknowledge the reality that Drake May has had some pretty significant accuracy issues throughout his time in college. And if you don't believe me, let's look at the numbers here. Sports Info Solutions has a metric called on-target percentage. So like we talk about completion percentage, but on-target percentage I think is a better indication of someone's accuracy, because that's telling you how often they are putting it right on the receiver. Okay, and among all college quarterbacks last year, let's look at the splits here. Short yardage, 0 to 9 yards. May ranked 92nd out of 123 eligible quarterbacks last year. That's awful. And then even worse, in the intermediate level of the field, 10 to 19 yards, he ranked 101st out of 103 eligible quarterbacks in college football last year. Didn't even crack the top 100. And then you look at the deep numbers, the percentage there is a little bit better. 40th out of 78 passers. So I guess there's that, but it's like that's not a great number either. So he definitely has to get better with that accuracy if he is going to be a star-level quarterback. And I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury, who has not really got a good track record of developing quarterbacks in his time as a coach, both in college and in the pros. I'm just not sure if that's a good fit, and I think that Drake May probably wouldn't get that development that he needs in Washington. So if you're the Commanders, here are your options, okay? Jayden Daniels is probably still your best fit, right? He's got that nice combination of upside with NFL readiness, but he might not want to come to your football team. Your other option is Drake May, who has that star upside as well, but he's potentially a poor fit, and that low floor really does scare me. And then there's J.J. McCarthy, who Matt Miller, among others from ESPN, have connected. Tom Pelissero as well as connected to the Washington Commanders at number 2. I think he is a good fit for what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. He's got good throwing mechanics, good pocket footwork, so it's not like Cliff has to work with him too much on that end, but I do think he might have a little bit more of a limited upside compared to Jayden Daniels or Drake May, and the high upside and the playmaking and the dynamic aspects to their game that I think McCarthy lacks just a little bit. So now my prediction for what the Commanders are going to do is I think they will probably take Drake May. Now, I would be significantly concerned if I was a Commanders fan with May going to Washington with Cliff Kingsbury's record of really not developing quarterback talent. I mean, he's been around talented quarterbacks like Johnny Manziel and Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, but he hasn't really developed them throughout their respective careers, and they had to go elsewhere to really become the quarterbacks that they ended up being. Of course, Johnny Manziel just didn't work out in the pros, but Drake May is the type of guy here where you're coming in. I think that he fits the kind of leadership mold that Dan Quinn, the head coach, is going to want to look for. And I think Cliff Kingsbury and his hubris is going to be like, I can fix Drake May. I can fix his footwork, and I can fix it. I'm not too sure about that, but I think that's what the Commanders are going to do next Thursday. Now, let me know down there in the comments section. Do you think Jayden Daniels wants to be a Washington Commander next year? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. Do you believe the rumblings that Daniels is trying to force his way out of Washington? Now, before I get to the rest of today's show, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor here at Fanatics. Go to chatsports.com/NFL Draft Hats to get the official draft hat for the 2024 NFL Draft for your favorite NFL team today. They've got all 32 teams. I really like the design this year with the gray and then the color accents on there. I think it's really stylish. If you want to get a piece of your team's draft history right now, you can go chatsports.com/NFL Draft Hats to get your NFL Draft Hat for your favorite team in your closet before Thursday night. So now I want to go over my updated QB projections, all right? Because last week I came on here and I said, here are where I think all the quarterbacks end up. Now, because of this Jayden Daniels story, and I think now Drake May will most likely be the pick at number 2, let's update that for you guys right now. So I still think Caleb Williams is going to be a Chicago Bear. That's been set in stone. I definitely think that's going to be the pick. Number 2, Drake May, like we've discussed on today's show, I think he'll be a Washington Commander. I've laid out my concerns for that, and I think Drake May has a pretty significant chance to bust if he is the Washington Commanders pick at number 2 overall. Then we get Jayden Daniels. I think that, there won't be a trade with the Patriots. I think if Daniels is sitting there at 3, he is who the New England Patriots want to pick at number 3 overall. So I think at the end of the day, this kind of all works out because everybody gets the quarterback that they want and nobody trades out of the top 3. Then we go to my number 4 quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. I think he's a really good fit with the Las Vegas Raiders, whether that be a trade-up situation, whether that be taking him at 13, or even potentially even trading down from number 13. I think Michael Penix Jr. fits what the Raiders want in their future franchise quarterback. I think that's an excellent fit. And then also, speaking of great fits, J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan going to the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, I think the McVay and Shanahan style guys are really going to love McCarthy because of his ability to stand in the pocket with toughness, to throw the ball over the middle of the field. And then also what McCarthy does, I think, better than maybe some people kind of say that he does, and one of his true strengths is getting outside the pocket and creating both with his arm and with his legs. I think that adds an element to Minnesota's offense that Kirk Cousins just didn't, and I love the infrastructure in place there in Minnesota. Then with the Denver Broncos, I think Bo Nix will be the pick at some point, whether that be round 1 at number 12, whether that be a trade down situation and then take him later in the first. Hell, they could even take him in round 2 if he falls that far, but I think Bo Nix is a really good fit with what Sean Payton wants to do there in Denver, and I don't think the Broncos have the draft capital to trade up for any of these guys before him on the list, so I think that they will settle for Bo Nix on draft night. Now predict it for me down there in the comments section. Where do you think Jayden Daniels will be playing his football to begin his NFL career? Do you think the Commanders will still take him? Do you think he ends up with the Patriots? Do you think the Raiders, who have been heavily tied to him, end up trading up to go get him? Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. Where's Jayden Daniels going to be playing football next year? Again, that'll be it for today's show, guys. I really do appreciate your support. If you want more stuff from me and you liked what you heard today and you want more NFL and NFL draft analysis from me on social media, I'm at Jack_Sperry on X and at SpareDog.football on Instagram. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to be giving you guys extensive NFL draft coverage all throughout draft week next week, so to never miss a thing, make sure you're clicking that subscribe button right now.